So you've got this old car stereo gear sitting around because your baby mama made you take it out of the car. That's right, you got a subwoofer and an amp, and you want it to bump in your house. How can we do that? Did you know it could be as simple as an old power supply from your video game system? Let's find out more. A few months ago, I made a video on how to power car stereo at home starting around $20, but I got a lot of people responding saying, did you know you can use an Xbox power supply? That's right, Microsoft Xbox video game power supply. I was like, yeah, I knew it, but I didn't know people really wanted to see it. Well, that's what we're going to do today. So how do you go about powering a car stereo at home using an Xbox One power supply? We're going to talk about it. So here it is. This is the Xbox One, the fat power supply, 220 watt version. You can see here how big it is. I'll also show you the model number that's on the back. It shows 12 volts, 16.5 amps, and that's the important part. Also, it shows the model number here, which is the PB220102M2. This is for the original Microsoft Xbox One. There are other versions that will work, but we're going for the Xbox One here. Make sure the one that you purchase does have the power cord. Mine didn't. Luckily, I had an extra one laying around. You'll also need a sharp utility knife. We need this for stripping the wire after you cut it from the Xbox power supply's cable. I'll leave a link to one below from Amazon. Also, you'll need a Phillips screwdriver number 2. This is based on the amplifier you're going to use, so it may not be the same for everybody. Also, some wire strippers. You can go basic, you can go fancy. I myself prefer the basic style. Once again, I'll leave links below to some of the ones you can purchase if you don't have them. Also, you're going to need scissors, maybe. I didn't need scissors for this case, and you may not either, but I just left them here. Also, electrical tape or some way to attach wires. Of course, there are wire nuts and also these lever style wiring connectors. Whatever suits your fancy, whatever you have laying around works fine. Also, you're going to need a jumper wire, 20 gauge or larger. That's for the turn on. You'll see that later. Also, a digital multimeter. Now, you can go basic, you can go fancy. I'm showing a fancy one here. This is a Fluke. Of course, if you don't have one this nice sitting around, you just need a multimeter. You can get these for around $15 on Amazon. Again, I'll leave a link below. You just need one that will measure DC voltage so you can test the power supply after you do the stripping of the wire, and we'll show that as we go through. There's all the different components you need. Hopefully, you already have the Xbox power supply. That's why you're watching this. Of course, we can't forget the amplifier. You're going to need one of these as well. And your subwoofer, and hopefully it's in a box. Also, you're going to need some speaker cable to connect from the amplifier to the subwoofer. And you don't have to use a subwoofer. You can use regular speakers if you like, but for this example, I'm using a subwoofer. First up, we're going to take the power supply, and the end that typically plugs into the Xbox itself is the one that we're going to play around with. And what we're going to do here is extend out maybe 3 or 4 inches. This way you can actually reuse it if you'd like to. We're going to cut and strip the wires. So what we're going to do here is, again, get about 4 inches from the end of the connector. We'll go ahead and cut it off. And there's a lot of wires on the inside here that we need to get to. So what we're going to do is use this utility knife very carefully. Do not cut yourself. Score it all the way around the outside very lightly. Then you can pull the sheathing off. And you will see there are multiple wires. There are 6 different wires on the inside. 2 yellow, 2 black, 1 red, and 1 blue. Now, using your wire strippers, go ahead and strip all 6 of these. I like to give about 1 inch of length on the end. That way it gives you enough to twist the wires together. So let's go ahead and tighten those up by twisting them to the right. And then you can see we have them all together. Now we're going to twist the black wires together and the yellow together. The black is the ground, the yellow is the 12 volt. Ensuring all those wires are separated out and not touching other than the same colors, let's go ahead and plug in the Xbox power supply to the back of the Xbox, plug it into the power source, and we're going to test the voltage using the digital multimeter. You want to set to volts DC, which is the V with the line over it. Go ahead and turn it to that. That gets us ready to test the voltage, but first we have to twist together the red and blue wires, and you're going to see here on the power supply how the light changes from orange to white. That means it's powered up. Then we're going to take the red probe and go to the yellow wires, the black probe to the black wires, and you can see 12.1 volts. That's good. That means we're ready to power some car stereo. Now for safety, go ahead and unplug the Xbox from the power source, and let's move on to the next step. Go ahead and grab your amplifier. In this case, we have a 75 watt by 2 amplifier. Make sure you don't have anything too big. And the easiest way to find out if it's acceptable or not is check the fuse size or the fuse rating. In this case, 20 amp fuse is going to work perfect, so that's what we're going to use. Don't expect that you can use a big amp. None of these will work. For the Xbox style power supplies, a small amplifier or a head unit is all you're going to use. Now for wiring the amp, we're going to use this little jumper wire here to go between the remote or REM connection and the B+ or 12 volt connection. What that's going to do is allow the amp to turn on. Wire in the 2 black connectors into the ground and the 2 yellow connectors into the B+ or positive connection on the amplifier. Of course, you'll also need to wire up your speaker. In this case, it is a 10-inch subwoofer, and we're going to wire the amplifier to this. We're going to use the red here for positive, use the black for negative, and we're using the one with the blue stripe going to positive. So when we get to the amp, the blue stripe going to the positive connector here. This is a 2-channel amp which we're bridging for the subwoofer. In some cases, you'll just have one output if you have a monoblock amp. Just make sure you get positive and negative correct. Here's everything wired up. Double check all your connections. Make sure they're in there good. Make sure they're in there tight. Everything is good here. Next up, we need to get a source. In this case, we're going to connect up a small MP3 player through 3.5 millimeter to RCA adapter. That's just for this purpose here. You can use pretty much anything that has RCA jacks going in to the amp as your source. You also want to set the crossover settings on the amp if you have those. In this case, we'll set it to the low pass mode and set your gain about halfway up. Now, you also want to make sure your source is turned all the way down. In this case, I've got the MP3 player volume turned all the way down to the very minimum. Okay, now we're going to plug in the Xbox power supply. And if everything goes good, we're going to see that white light come on the power supply, and we're going to see the amplifier turn on as you see here. The biggest thing to remember is you have 16.5 amps available from the Xbox power supply, so your amplifier cannot be huge. You can use a head unit or a smaller amplifier, but you could also use a 4-channel or a voice amplifier if you want full range speakers. Now let's find out if it bumps. As you can see, we get some pretty good flex here from this small 150 watt or so amplifier powering this 10-inch subwoofer. Again, in your house using car audio speakers, you don't need a whole lot of power to get some pretty impressive bass. And I was pretty happy with this little setup here. I mean, a powered home subwoofer by a home audio amp makes more sense in a lot of cases, but if you don't have the money, you already have an Xbox power supply, you have everything else you need, why not, right? Let's find out what the power consumption is. So if we use the kilowatt here with just the Xbox going, we have that plugged in without the amp turned on yet. You can see we're pulling about 1.6 watts of power. Now if we turn on the amplifier with the power supply, you can see we're pulling about 6.4 up to about 6.7 watts, which is 0.08 amps of current. So it's about like leaving a light bulb on or so. If you have your amp going the whole time, you might just want to power it down and save your electricity. Next up, we're going to hook up the AMM1 to find out some real-time power using this to find out how much we're getting to the speaker. How much you think it'll do? I see numbers close to 150 watts here at about 2.5 ohms according to the AMM1. So it's putting out pretty good power. And again, this subwoofer's got some pretty good flex to it. Let's check out the kilowatt to find out how much we're actually pulling from the wall socket. Here you can see 49 watts, 200 watts, 88 watts, 56. Of course, it's going to fluctuate up and down. We just got to make sure we don't do over 220 because that's what the power supply is rated at. Of course, the Xbox power supply may put out a little bit more than 220 for short burst, but obviously if your amp goes into protect or if everything shuts off, it's probably because you're trying too big of an amp and pulling too much current from the power supply. Again, the purpose of this video is just to show you an inexpensive way of how to hook up 12-volt electronics in your home. Say you already have an Xbox power supply, you've got everything you need, then you can do this for basically no money. That's what's so cool about it. Now, if you like to add a switch to your amplifier so it turns on like it does in your car, you can just wire in a switch to the remote socket and then put the other part of the switch to the B+. That makes it turn on just like in your car when you turn your key or when you press your on button, because I know most of you have cars now, you push a button, you don't actually turn a key. And that way you can remotely power on your amplifier instead of having it on the whole time where the power supply is on. Kind of cool to do it that way. Again, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. I know people have mentioned before server power supplies provide a lot of power. That's true. That was a little bit more DIY than I wanted to get into with this video. For this case, I just want to show something very simple using the Xbox One power supply and just stripping the wires, and it's pretty easy to set this up. If you'd like to learn car audio at home, hook up 12-volt electronics, see how they work. It's very fun to do that, and I think a lot of you guys, even you younger guys that aren't driving yet, if you want to learn how to wire up your car stereo at home and you've got an old Xbox One power supply, maybe the Xbox One itself is dead, this way you can go ahead and have fun with car audio before you can even drive a car. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. Make sure you smash me a thumbs up. Share this with your friends, maybe who haven't seen my channel before. I'd much appreciate that. Thanks for supporting at patreon.com/oldschoolstereo. As always, this is Big D. Thank you for watching. Until next time, you know where Big D's at. That's right, I'm bumping, but I'm also out of here.